You're watching QTV and you're watching The Week in Review. I'm your host, Adi Darami, and every week on this program we go through 10 of the big stories from the week. And as ever, I have a special guest to go through the stories with me, and this week is no exception. I have here with me a colleague, Aji Bintu Drame. Aji, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
And thanks for coming along. And as I said there, in case you're watching this program for the first time, what we do is we go through 10 of the big stories from the week, analyze them, kick them around, and discuss them in some detail. So let's get going straight away. And the first story actually concerns our Attorney General. He's resigned. Have a look at this.
3.5 years of Minister Tambedu's service in President Adama Barrow's government will end in less than 4 days after he had handed his resignation to the president, a resignation based on what he called personal reasons. The minister gives his farewell message to the country with a strong emphasis on what his ministry has delivered for our country post-Yahya Jammeh era.
There you heard from our colleague Choi. The Attorney General talked about what he has delivered for our country. Aji, what's your assessment of the man?
Yeah, the fact is he's a great man. You know, he's a great man in the sense that he restored or uplift the image of the Gambia internationally by spearheading the international defense of Myanmar's Rohingyas genocide case.
Sure.
And also he probes to investigate the abuses under Jammeh's regime.
Sure.
You know, so those are great achievements, you know, within the 3.5 years, you know, in office.
I'm surprised you say that because he's prosecuting the Myanmar case. It's not resolved yet.
Yeah.
He might lose. Jammeh hasn't been brought to justice yet.
Yeah.
But he did say that Jammeh will have his day in court. And what did you make of that when he said that?
Well, I think it's a promise, and yeah, and I think he will stay to his words. You know, yeah.
Now, one of the things that, for many people, it came as a surprise. You've said he's a great man. Did it come as a surprise to you that he was resigning at this time when he's in the midst of achieving so much?
Well, honestly, it was a surprise indeed. But, you know, like everybody wants to be elevated in some day or the other, you know, because it's a plus for him. It's a plus for him being the first Gambian and the first ever youngest person, you know, to have that appointment as a, you know.
Now, let me stop you there.
Yeah.
You're saying to have that appointment. These are only based on rumors because he said nothing about that in his press release. I was going to say it's a press conference, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
In fact, he was criticized for it because what he did was he spoke about all the achievements, but he didn't say what he was doing or where he was going. He said for personal reasons. And when somebody says that, people tend to stop. So let me ask you, what's this appointment that you're referring to?
Yeah, the appointment as the registrar of the International Residual Mechanism for Criminal Tribunals.
Yes.
You know, I read it just earlier ago on a report.
Yes.
And it's a big achievement for him.
Yes,
so
if it's true.
Yeah, if it's true. So congrats to him if it's true.
Okay.
Yeah, more wins.
Okay, now you said he's a great man and you've said that, you know, he's got this big appointment ahead. Yesterday, one of the criticism, which I kind of just touched on, was that it was meant to be a press conference, but essentially he had a 27-page statement, which he read out and which he sent to the press. He could just as well have sent it to the press. It wasn't a press conference. And if you were a journalist, what questions would you have asked him if you'd been there and if he had taken questions? Because he walked away saying, I'm not taking any questions. If you had been there, putting on your journalist clothes, what questions would you have asked him?
Well, for me, I will ask him why now, you know, during this period, you know, during his period in the Gambia when we are in these trying moments fighting for the Rohingyas.
Sure.
Yeah, in Myanmar. Why now? Why does he have to do it now?
Sure.
You know, it's
Yeah.
an important question, you know,
which
some
kind
people
of,
are curious
it kind of
about.
touches on what I was going to come to, because
Yeah.
you said he was a great man and you also congratulated him on
Yeah.
this new job. But the point is, some people might think he's abandoning two very, very good causes, you know, the sort of going after Jammeh, his assets and so on. And also the Rohingya case, where he's very much been the person in the lead on behalf of the Gambia, and yet he's leaving when those matters are unresolved. So what's your view on that?
Well, I don't know for sure.
Is it that the job that he's been offered is too good to refuse, possibly?
Yeah, that's why I said, like, you know, everybody wants to be elevated in some point, you know. So maybe what they offer him, you know, at the UN, it's bigger.
Sure.
You know, it's bigger.
Yeah.
So that's why he make that decision. So.
I'm interested you said that, because many people who criticized him, probably if they were in the same
if
position,
they were in this in his shoes, they'll
do exactly the same thing.
They will grab that opportunity with both hands.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well said. And so we wish him all the best of luck in his new career, even though, as I said, as a journalist, I would have been very miffed if I'd been invited to a press conference and all I got was somebody reading a statement to me, but nonetheless, might forgive him that one. Now, on to our next story. This has brought relief for some parents and trepidation to some students. Why? Because they're back to school. Well, some of them are back to school. Have a look at this report and then you'll see exactly what we're talking about.
As students return to their classrooms, they are greeted with COVID-19 precautionary measures. Their temperatures are checked and each issued a face mask.
This is the best time because we've got the clearance from the medical field that is worthy for schools to resume, most of grade 9 students.
I was expecting that we will cover all our syllabus and we do great and our teachers will help us understand more about our lessons to cope up with this exam that we're about to do.
Now, we heard there from the head girl of one of the schools that's gone back. Ajibintu, you, of course, much younger than me, and so you probably remember your school days much better than me. But really, on to this particular story, it's been a while now since children have been off because of COVID-19 and the restrictions. What sense do you get of how, A, they've managed to cope whilst they've been away from school, and the readjustment that's likely to happen? How do you see that happening?
Yeah. Well, first off, it is really nice to reopen school, you know. But the thing is, you know, for students to reopen, get direct lectures with their teachers, and also hopefully finish syllabus before exams, because they're about to sit their exams.
That's right.
You know. But the big question is, right now, due to the coronavirus cases are increasing in the Gambia. So how safe are the children?
Yes, I mean the MOPSI, the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education, they put out a sort of 11-point program about the guidelines, the safety guidelines, about people having to wear masks, about the distancing that has to be in classes, and about the fact that schools and exam halls have to be aerated, all the windows open. I mean, were you sort of satisfied? Were you happy with those things that they said they were going to put in place?
Well, schools have been fumigated, yes, but will it be a continued process?
Sure.
Will officials or authorities monitor the students? Because yesterday when I was coming to work, I saw a group of students, you know, intermingling within themselves.
As they do.
There were no face mask.
Quite.
So outside the classes, who will monitor the students?
Sure.
Because these students and elderly people during this period, they are the ones most at risk.
Of course.
So aside from that, how are they monitoring the students outside the boundaries of the class?
I mean, you've actually touched on something which I hadn't quite considered, but it's a wider point, because a lot of these students, when they go to and from school, they'll be not only mingling with people at school, but also on their transport journeys. They might get in a taxi or a minibus with other people, and then they go home. They might be with their parents or their grandparents, who, as you said, you know, people who are at the sort of main at-risk groups. But the point you've kind of raised by mentioning that is that, are we as a country, as a nation, taking seriously the precautions? On my way in this morning, I was listening to the radio, and he was talking about, you know, wearing face masks, coughing into your elbow, and washing hands. And yet for the last 3 or so days when I've been going to shops, I've been the only one who's been washing my hands. Other people are just walking in and ignoring the hand. So are we becoming complacent already?
The thing is, I don't think we are taking this thing very seriously because nowadays you don't even see buckets of water being stationed. Even if they are stationed in some places, people are not using them anymore.
Or they're empty.
Yeah, or they are empty. Yes. So I don't think like they take this very serious. And in this for this context, like the students, like it is the role of both the authorities and the students to protect themselves, you know, in order to cope this virus.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so students, authorities, everybody has a role to play in curbing the virus, and I guess parents also have a role to play in enforcing and reinforcing the stories about it. So yes, but thanks for that, IG. And as I said, you mentioned a point there which I really hadn't considered until you mentioned it. Now on to our very next story, and this is quite a significant one in terms of the impact that COVID-19 has had on business. Have a look at this clip and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about.
Loan restructuring and deferrals, specifically for small and medium enterprises.
Despite the lack of current relief package, the minister gave an assurance that the government is looking at means to support SMEs. On the issue of Banjul Breweries, Minister Job also informed lawmakers that the factory has finally shut down operations after decades in the Gambia. The company was incorporated in 1973 and started production in 1977. The minister went on to say that although his ministry has been in talks with the factory officials, nothing could be done to stop the factory's closure. The company was the Gambia's only brewery and produced a variety of beers and Guinness, in addition to a variety of soft drinks and energy drinks.
They said the company is called Banjul Breweries, but of course it wasn't just beer that they brewed. IG, we've heard that this company in the past year or two, certainly since I came to this country in January of last year, has talked about financial problems that they've had. COVID-19 seems to have sent it over the edge. I mean, what sense do you get of whether this closure is permanent? The minister, before you answer, the minister did say that he thinks it might be permanent because they've already started selling off some of their assets. But really, is this crisis one that has actually killed off this company, do you think?
As the only bottling company in the Gambia, and they have been in the Gambia for over 41 years now, it will create a major impact, because I can remember last year also about the tax increment.
That's right.
They had been really hit,
yes.
And there were a lot of impacts, being laid off over 200 staff, and majority of them are youth.
That's right.
And also for the tourism industry, it will be a huge challenge. It will be a huge challenge,
yes,
especially in the economy of the Gambia.
Because, for the company itself, as well as you mentioned the tax matter, which they brought to the attention of the public, but also because of COVID-19, we don't have tourists coming in, so all the restaurants, the bars, the hotels that would have been buying are not buying from them because they just don't have customers coming in. So if Banjul Breweries is that hard hit, can we expect more businesses in that sector to go out of business?
Yeah, definitely, especially bars, because like this is a drink that a lot of people buy, not only Gambians, but also it attracts tourists.
You mean Jewel Brew?
Yeah, Jewel Brew.
Are you one of the Gambians who buys it?
No.
Okay, no.
No, but like it will be felt, their absence will be felt.
Of course.
Really. Yeah,
I think you're right, because they were a significant employer, employed a lot of people, but also there's this kind of supply chain, the people who delivered, so as well as the people that they directly employed, all the people who delivered the drinks, collected on behalf of the various businesses. So I think the impact, the ripples of their closure, I think we will come to see more in next week or two. Surely.
Yeah, definitely. Like it will create a lot of unemployment, like a platform of unemployment, especially youth, because they it is a company that employs more youth,
That's what I heard last year when the whole tax thing came to. In what sort of areas do they employ youth? Is it in mainly distribution, like delivery, that sort of thing?
Distribution, in the factory within, parking, and a whole lot of areas, you know, and most of them are youth, you know, and we all know that like the Gambia, we don't have a lot of employment opportunities. So
that's an African problem, not just a Gambian problem. But thank you for that. So I think we're saying essentially that the ripple effect is likely to be felt in the weeks and months to come of the closure of Banjul Breweries, and I think one that we should definitely keep an eye on as to what happens. But once again, thanks for that. And now another matter which seems to create a lot of debate rather, across the country. This was about the removal of the... listen, let me not spoil it. Have a look at this clip.
Having told you what is contained in the Act, once we studied all these things as technicians, we resolved that the fact that one, the position he was there acting, he couldn't be able to continue acting without having appointed. So what could be done is to make sure that one, you couldn't be able to go and advertise for a position that is really not vacant.
Perfectly said there. You could not advertise for a position that is not vacant. As you've been to this man's Darbo's sacking, removal, whatever it was, generated a lot of heat and comment. What were your thoughts on that? Were you surprised? I asked you regarding the Minister of Justice and Attorney General. Were you surprised at his resignation? This wasn't a resignation, it was a removal, a dismissal, whichever one you want to call it. Were you surprised?
No, I'm not surprised.
Okay.
You know, but like with this decision, I will leave it to the youth to decide as far as it concerns all youth, you know. So I'll be sitting on the fence.
It's interesting you say that because the reason I should push you really because not that because you're saying that it should be left to the youth to decide. Do you mean in terms of protesting about his removal? Is that what you mean?
Yes, in the sense like if they knew he deserves that position, although his term is over.
Sure.
Yeah, I believe if they know he is fit for this position with with the correct or most appropriate reason why they dismiss him, then I think they have the choice to decide.
Because I think what the ministry is saying is that he was interim for a number of years. But I think the Act is quite specific. I think they realized that actually they'd sort of gone against the Act, which brought the Commission, the National Youth Commission, into being, in that they had somebody acting for that number of years, 5.5 years, without making the person substantive. And then you don't make him substantive, you then say that, we're going to remove you, and then say, quite sort of serious things about him, saying that he'd gone against the ethics of the job and so on, in protesting when those people drowned. I mean, they're then going to say that he could apply for the job. But having said all those things, how realistic is that if he applied for the job, he'd even get an interview?
Well, well, that is very, very funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is very ironical,
yeah.
To me. But like, let's see how it goes.
Yeah.
Let's see how it goes.
I think, as you rightly say, let's see how it goes, because I think it's something that's not going to go away soon. People are planning a protest, but I would caution them to be careful about what they're processing about, because if I can just support the ministry for a minute here, not being specific, we're talking about African presidents overstaying their term and welcome and so on. And here we're complaining about somebody who's already served 5.5 years in a position. Isn't that long enough? But don't answer that. It's a rhetorical question. And so I think it's now time that we took a quick commercial break. And when we come back, we'll look at some people who had some bad news, but then they've recently had much better news. Don't go away. Join us after this quick commercial break.
Your favorite mobile service has done it again. Now you can buy cash power with your Q-Money account free of charge. Yes, you heard me right. For free. Nothing is cheaper than free. So start buying your cash power from the comfort of your homes with unbeatable services Q-Money has to offer. With Q-Money, life is easy. Visit your nearest Q-Money agent to cash in or call customer care on 133 for more information. Don't forget to wash your hands with soap after handling cash. Stay home, stay clean, stay safe. Q-Money, Sunyu Kalpe. We innovate, others follow.
When electricity goes off, even for a few hours, life is disrupted. Control your power and your life with the Perkins Texan Standby Generator supplied by Timber Company. When utility power is restored, Perkins Generator automatically shuts off and returns to standby mode, ready and waiting to protect your home. Perkins Texan Standby Generator. Reliable, quality, affordable, and efficient. Texan Perkins, supplied and maintained by Timber Company Limited, your answer to uninterrupted power right at your doorstep. Visit us today at number 60 Bertil Harding Highway, opposite Wyas, for best fit solutions for you. Call us on 345-6789, 767-6769, or 767-6768. Feel the power with Texan Perkins.
Welcome back. You're watching The Week in Review, and I'm your host, Ade Darami, and here in the studio going through the stories with me is Aji Bintu Drame. Aji, welcome once again.
Thank you.
And just before the break there, I was saying that we're going to hear about some people who had some bad news but have had much better news recently. I'll put you out of your misery. This is what I'm talking about.
And then our recommendations were to reconstruct or to build the shops, to change these iron and corrugated canteens to a solid building in which this type of disaster will not happen again.
Modu Elba, a victim whose shop has been reconstructed, has this to say.
We have been waiting for some time now, but business is going back to normal. It was not easy because we have lost everything to the fire. I lost almost $300,000 worth of items. The work they did on my shop is solid.
The work they did on my shop is solid. Now, as you've been to there, we heard, of course, Bakote market fire. Since I've come here, it seems that every week there's been a market fire somewhere, and no exception there. But as I also said, that what we seem to have gotten is actually they said, these people had corrugated structures, and now they've got solid ones. Going forward, do you think that we should actually look at all the areas, not wait for a fire to destroy somewhere that has a corrugated structure, but actually knock them down and build more solid structures as has happened here?
Yeah, I agree with you on that. We should have good structures, especially when it comes to the marketplace. Serakunda Market was also infamous for fire outbreaks. Always. And a lot of shops or stalls, will I say, are zinc, made of zinc. So, which is very, very bad, because like when you put these wires, sometimes it might be naked wires on the zinc. It is not good for anyone.
And a lot of the ones that are zinc, actually the frames are wood.
Yes.
And which of course is not good. And what we have here at Bakote Market, the replacement canteens that they built for these people are solid. It's concrete, and so you don't have the kind of, as you said, the kind of the danger of the electricity and the wood frames that's holding up these zinc fences. But to go back to the question, do you think there should be a sort of survey done across the country and everywhere where we have these, not wait for a fire, but everywhere we have structures such as that? I know you said it's a good idea, but should there be a sort of national policy of going across the country and actually dismantling and replacing these structures?
Yes, I believe in that, and I welcomed that. I welcome that idea. marketplaces or stalls should be solid, to avoid this kind of accidents.
Because I got fed up of hearing about market fires, and every time it seemed to be the same sort of thing, and it seemed to be the same sorts of structures that have been destroyed. So government and local authorities, we're reaching out to you with this suggestion that maybe you need to look at these structures and see whether they need to be permanently replaced. Now, we've kind of mentioned COVID-19 in and around various things, the effect of schools having been closed and didn't reopen, Banjul breweries having to be closed and so on. But mainly we've avoided talking about coronavirus and COVID-19 in as much detail as we've done in the past. But this next story is unavoidable. Have a look at this.
President Macky Sall will be in self-isolation for 2 weeks, despite having tested negative for the virus. In another development, Senegalese lawmaker Yaya Jallow announced earlier on Wednesday that she had tested positive for the virus. She called on people to take essential personal measures, such as maintaining hygiene and social distancing. Senegal has so far confirmed 6,129 cases, including 93 deaths. 4 of the fatalities were announced on Wednesday. The rise in cases comes not long after Senegal lifted restrictions on movement between cities and shutting the nightly curfew.
Now, the president is being very responsible there. He has tested, and he's been tested negative, but he has come into contact with somebody who has it. Is he doing the right thing, or should he just carry on as normal?
Yeah, like any other person, he should be quarantined, because we have a lot of people, important people, who were tested positive or negative, or who came in contact with people who have COVID-19, where we are quarantined. So it has no respect of person, and it doesn't have status, or whatever or whomever you are, you should be quarantined.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, what's interesting also about the Senegalese president is that, as is mentioned in the report there, this has come at a time when they've actually relaxed some of the restrictions. And once he had sort of come into contact with somebody who had tested positive, people thought that perhaps they might reimpose the restrictions, but he's not done so. Is he right not to do so? In other words, would that have been a bit of an overreaction that, just because I've come into contact with somebody, I'm going to impose restrictions again? I mean, is he right not to reimpose these restrictions?
Well, for me, with the case, number of cases, over 6,000 cases,
yeah, sure.
I think they should restrict their movements. They should put back the rules or regulations,
sure.
In order to cope the virus, because it is taking over.
Sure.
6,000 is too much.
It's a lot. I mean, do you get a sense that what we're seeing, not just in Senegal but in other countries, people are giving into pressure because people are fed up of having to abide by the restrictions, and as I was saying here in the Gambia, people are pretty much ignoring them already. Are governments giving in to people and saying, okay, look, we know you're fed up of being indoors or having to wear a face mask, having to wash your hands, Are they giving into that and saying that even when cases, like has happened in America as I speak to you now, but in many states they're not reimposing the restrictions? Should they be harder and say, look, if we want to defeat this, we have to reimpose?
Yeah, definitely. We have to reimpose. If we have to defeat this, if we have to eradicate the virus, I would take Gambia as an example. People are so relaxed, they don't take this virus so serious. Like I said, they are not even using the face mask or following the WHO guidelines anymore.
Yeah.
Everyone is so relaxed, and the Gambia, for instance, cases are getting higher now.
But I think isn't part of the reason we're getting complacent is that I think 2 of the, or maybe even 3 of the last few cases have been imported.
Yes.
And so you hear people saying, well, we don't have it here. It's people bringing it in. Is that also something that's a problem, that attitude?
Yes. Like our porous borders, for instance, people, some people are saying the borders are open. Some people are saying the borders we are never closed.
Wow.
So I don't know which is which, because I keep hearing people say, my relative from Senegal or somewhere came last night And you are hearing people saying the borders are closed. So where are they coming from? And especially these imported cases.
I mean, you've touched on a point there which has been made time and time again, which is about people talk about the borders, but really, I mean, there are some official borders, but the sheer geography of the place means that those official borders are a nonsense. I mean, people don't abide by them. They're not the only ways you can cross into and out of these countries, and so. Are we talking about an impossible task, or should they still monitor? We know that in some instances they've provided motorbikes to the border patrol so they can go to the kind of unofficial crossing points. But are we fighting a losing battles just because of the sheer geography of how we're sort of enveloped by Senegal?
I think we should work harder, you know, do the extra mile, go the extra mile in order to curb this virus. You know, we should put stricter monitor policies, you know, because like this is very it is disappalling. You know, it is very crazy.
I mean, as you mentioned there, you hear people saying, you know, my relative just came from Senegal, and it tells you, and I guess that's the point I'm trying to get at about, you know, is this a sort of impossible task that we're trying to achieve? But yes, stricter policies, better monitoring, and so on. You know, it's about saving lives, and
it's about saving lives,
including our own. So, authorities, border people, please, let's, you know, get strict with these things. Now, the next story is one that is very, very unusual in Africa. What am I talking about? No, not snow. Have a look, and you'll see exactly what I mean.
Last year, Malawi became only the second African nation to annul a presidential election over irregularities, after Kenya did so in 2017. Although official results for Tuesday's poll have not yet been declared by Malawi's Electoral Commission, officials from the state broadcaster, in an unusual move, announced that opposition leader Lazarus Chakwera is leading with 59% of the vote and declared him the winner. President Peter Mutharika, who wants a second term, has 38%, it says. The third person in the race, Peter Kwani, who was not regarded as a serious challenger to the main two, is said to have received less than 2% of the vote.
As I sit here, Lazarus Chakwera, the opposition leader, and his supporters have been celebrating for about a day, and even though official results are not in yet. And we said there in the report, and in my introduction, I said this was unusual across Africa. And we mentioned the Kenya case, here in the Gambia. We had disputed elections. I mean, is this something that we're going to see more of, where people actually take it to the courts and possibly win and get a rerun?
Yeah, I think like people are getting more aware, you know, especially with their rights.
Sure.
Yeah. So with this, I think he was being underrated, like in the story. You know, he was not a challenger.
No. The person they mentioned as not being the challenger was the chap who came third, and he got less than 2%. But Chakwera was very much seen as a challenger, and in fact, one of the reasons why he felt he could challenge the last result was because it was quite close anyway, and it was close despite the vote rigging, which the Supreme Court mentioned in giving a judgment. But in some cases, in some countries in Africa, people are actually scared to take it to the Supreme Court because they think the courts usually have been compromised and you know, made fearful of whoever's in the lead. So I guess what we have to say is that, do you think this will inspire in other countries where there are disputed elections? Hey, talking about all these places, you know, that far away, Guinea-Bissau, until recently, we had the weird case. I mean, is this something that we have to really get rid of in Africa, this kind of constant talk of vote rigging?
Yeah.
Do you see it ending anytime soon?
Yeah, I think so, because this thing will serve as an inspiration to other, you know, candidates or other countries, you know, to follow the same footsteps, you know.
And I think that if people aren't aware, I think what was good about the Malawi case and why the state broadcaster, again, usually the state broadcaster goes with the incumbent and they mention, well, why the state broadcaster was able to be so bold as to announce the opposition as the winner wasn't just that they'd gone by exit polls. Every poll station had already published its results. And so they were able to do the sums themselves. They didn't have to wait for the Electoral Commission. Now, unless you're going to do something dodgy, like fix the figures, those are the figures. They've been signed off by, returning officers at individual polling stations, and so they were able to do the maths themselves. Is that a kind of better method that we should all be kind of going for across Africa, do you think?
Yeah, definitely, sure. And I think that will be welcomed by everyone, to get a fair play at the end.
That's right. I think fair play is what we want. In Sierra Leone, famously in, I think, 2007 elections, or probably before, they had a similar thing, where what they did was outside each polling station, the returning officer would sign off saying these are the finally counted votes, and they would stick it on the outside. And what people did was they took pictures with their mobile phones and sent it to a central collecting point that wasn't the Electoral Commission. And as ever, people were able to do their own sums. So there was no way you could cheat. If the result from, I don't know, Kairaba Avenue said 10,000 people voted, that was it, because it had been signed off. And good use of social media for a change. Do you think? I mean, and do you think that this is something that we should be seeing more of, or should be encouraging?
Sure, we should be encouraging this, to avoid partiality, like I said, to other, in order to encourage fair play.
Sure.
Now,
I pose this next question to you as somebody who's quite young. People of your generation and slightly younger who can vote in elections, do you get a sense that they are interested enough, if for argument's sake there was an election tomorrow? Do you think many of them go beyond being what people accuse them of being, keyboard warriors? They're on Facebook, they're on Twitter, they're on this, that. Would they queue in the hot sun to vote if there was an election tomorrow?
Definitely. Young people like us, because we are the one to change the narratives of tomorrow.
Sure.
So, and for the Gambia, over 65% youth, so for these kind of things, obviously, young people will volunteer, be in the sun, and in order to change the narratives, because each vote counts.
Okay, so springing on from this thing about elections, etc., let me again pose another question. What are the things that you think, because you just kind of touched on it there, that young people want? You're a young person yourself. What are the things that you want for your country? What sort of vision do you have for your country that you would like to see delivered by politicians or by people like yourself by voting? What would you like to see?
First off, I will start with the education system.
Sure.
Like I said, the education is important in every nation.
Sure.
And education, the educational system, especially in the Gambia, it should be changed.
Sure.
That will be the first thing, in order for job opportunities, to be broader.
Sure.
Yeah. So education, I would change the educational system first.
Okay. You sound very much like Tony Blair. When Tony Blair took over all those years ago, he said there are three important things that his government were going to deal with, and that was education, education, and education.
Yeah.
And so perhaps Tony Blair has been listening to you or influencing you. Thank you for that, Aji. And now we'll take another quick commercial break, and when we come back, we'll look at something which doesn't happen often enough in Africa. I'm talking about domestic tourism. Don't go away. Join us after this quick commercial break.
Designers, tailors, fabric shop owners. Do not miss out on this unique opportunity to showcase your work at QTV's Tobaski Act Style Fashion Show. Tobaski Act Style 3.0 will showcase local fashion designers and fashion shops' latest styles for Tobaski. To participate in QTV's Tobaski Act Style, Call us on 32 or send us an email at marketing@qtv.gm. Remember to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at QTV Gambia.
From an early age, we value the feeling of speed, the thrill of the wind as we rush to our destinations, the feel of our feet bounding over the ground, the way the world blurs as we rush by. Faster, faster than a ray of light, I'm flying. I have one speed, I have one gear. Keep on moving, I won't stop till I get there. Want to experience speed? Then subscribe to the Gambia's 4G LTE mobile network, QCell. With speeds of up to 45 megabytes per second, you can get online in the blink of an eye. The fastest browsing, stream videos faster, do much more faster. Just dial *335# to join the fastest club. QCell's 4G LTE mobile network. Go faster. For more information, call 111. QCell, Senior Boss. We innovate, others follow.
Welcome back. You're watching QTV and you're watching the Week in Review. I'm your host, Ade Darami. And if you're just joining us, I hope you've got a very good reason or excuse for why you're only joining us now. But nonetheless, if you are just joining us, we're going through some of the big stories from the week that's just ending. And as ever, I have a guest to do that with me. And my guest this week is Aji Bintu Drame. And thanks again, Aji. And some of you may recognize the voice, some of you may recognize the face. Aji is one of our reporters here at QTV. And over the next few weeks, you'll be seeing more and more of our reporters and journalists taking the seat opposite me here on the Week in Review. Now, we're on to our final three stories of this program. And tourism has been very, very badly hit during the coronavirus pandemic. But nonetheless, it's also meant that ministers of tourism have to think about post-COVID-19, what next? Have a look at this, and you'll see what some of what the Minister of Tourism has been talking about.
We believe that developing a strong domestic tourism would certainly make a difference, because all our tourist arrivals are international. And again, working on the regional market, taking Nigeria as one of our best source market, that we want to replace some of our European market with Nigerian and other countries that have strong middle class economy, the Ivory Coast, the Senegal and Ghana and other countries, that we will really work toward attracting them to come and be tourists and enjoy the beauty.
I'm smiling because that's quite a bold statement by the Minister of Tourism there. Ajibintu, he's talking about wanting to attract more of the kind of domestic tourism, that is tourism in and around and from the sub-region. So let me start first of all by posing a question. How many countries outside your own have you visited in the region or the sub-region?
Well, in the region, not much.
Right.
Senegal.
Right.
Yeah, mainly Senegal.
Which, come on, hardly counts, does it?
But
But no, it's not a trick question.
Yeah.
But the reason I say is because one of the things that we talk about is that Africans tend not to visit enough African countries. In fact, one of the things I'm upset about with COVID-19 is that I don't normally make New Year's resolutions, but I had made one this year that I would visit every single country in West Africa before the end of the year. Of course, COVID-19 has put paid to that. But do you think this is ambitious or over-ambitious on behalf of the minister, saying that he would like to see more of that type of tourism? Over-ambitious or the right sort of ambition, the right sort of thing that he should be going for?
Well, it is over-ambitious to me.
Why?
You know, like, let us face the reality. If we, or if the minister have to do that, like, is he ready, you know, to put this into reality?
Sure.
You know, how is he going to do that?
Because you see, that might sound like a simple question, but it's a very good one, because what is it that he's going to put in place that is going to attract other Africans to want to visit another African country that has pretty much what their own country has?
Yeah.
So, but do you see that there are things that might be put in place?
Well, like I said, for him to actualize, or for Gambia to actualize that dream, we have to, you know, we have to have an exceptional thing, because like in Africa, almost we share lot of things in common.
Sure.
You know, we and in the Gambia sector here, the tourism sector, to start with, we have a lot of our tourism sites are dilapidated.
Sure.
You know, especially in the interior.
I mean, it's interesting you mentioned that because, again, you know, I said the minister hasn't been idle. I mean, one of the things we saw him do recently was that he went to some of these dilapidated sites. And actually, he was quite angry at some of them and what he saw at some of these places. And he talked about, you know, rehabilitation and refurbishment of that. Is that the sort of thing that you would like to see more of, more action and less words?
Yes, I would like to see more of those actions, especially in the province, you know, in the interior, because like I have gone to few places, you know, like the Albreda, Jufure Island is a nice place, and a lot of tourists do go there. You know, they like going there to, you know, to meet people in the grassroots, you know, and so those kind of places should be something exceptional to attract more people, especially within the sub-region. So is he really ready for that?
Sure.
Are we really ready?
Well, you, like everybody else, are probably fed up of hearing me talk about Cape Verde.
Yes.
But one of the reasons I go there is because of how they've developed their infrastructure. I grew up in Sierra Leone. I visited practically everywhere in Sierra Leone. So if I go to Cape Verde for holiday, I'm not going there because I want to go and lie on a beach. There has to be something different. So they have lots of good theatres, lots of good restaurants, lots of good museums of, you know, international standards. Because I have an interest in those things. Those are the sort of things surely that we should be, you know, that will make me want to go somewhere that rather, as I said, I'm not going to go there for the beach. You know, but you know, if I go to something like that, the Gambia has quite a lot of a rich history, both in the sort of post and pre-colonial times. And you've mentioned some of the sites. Where should we just expect government to provide the funding, or should we expect more from business in developing sites? Because in the end, they'll benefit from it as well, surely.
Either like stakeholders and especially businessmen too, they have role to play.
Sure.
You know, because at the end, like it is like a double-edged sword.
Sure.
You will give funds at the end, you will also have revenues, you know. You also get back revenues. So that's it. We really need to, you know, boost or play our quota in order for this, for his ambitious plan to be put into reality.
Sure.
You know.
Okay, thanks for that. So I think we've agreed it's not over-ambitious, it's ambitious. And now on to our next story, something that affected most of us, transport strike rather. It came to an end. Have a look at this.
After 7 hours of negotiations behind closed doors, chaired by Boaz Saidi, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Finance, deputizing for the Secretary General, stakeholders finally found a common ground. The agreement allows commercial drivers to carry 75% of their vehicle capacity.
Well, the commercial drivers didn't quite get what they wanted, but the strike has ended. And Ajibintu, they wanted to carry 100%, as they used to, or as some of them used to carry 150%, because some of them carried more than the capacity. But 75%, is this? Do you think that's going to satisfy? I mean, they brought the strike to an end after that, and we were told that there was 7.5 hours of negotiation, so it must have been quite heated before they reached that agreement. But is this likely to satisfy them, or are they going to push for 100%?
Well, for me, I wouldn't comment on that, you know. But the thing is, during this COVID-19, everybody have a role to play.
Sure.
You know, especially in this transport system. Sure. You know how the Gambia transport system is. But for me, I always pay $10 when I'm coming from Westfield till here till QCell is a short distance, but I pay $10. So I think like they still need to negotiate. You know, so that they won't suffer. They won't suffer at all.
You said everybody has a part to play. I mean, but when you think about it, for these people, this is their livelihood. And so if you're used to carrying, and I wasn't joking when I say they carry 150%, because many of them, they'll be packed to way beyond their capacity. If they were used to that and they were used to getting that income, suddenly you say, by law, you have to carry half the actual number. There's no other means of them getting money, and so they're making quite a huge loss, even though fuel prices came down, and that helped a bit. There's quite a gap that they have to make up in terms of what they were earning and what they're now earning, because we don't have a social security system here that pays that pays people when they're not earning. So were we expecting too much sacrifice from them?
Yeah, as far as it is their only livelihood, and some people and some of the drivers have families, I think the government need to help them in one way or the other, like pumping money in the into the transport union, for them to be satisfied, and to be patient during this crisis.
You're making me smile there, because every time I speak to a Gambian, I hear them use the phrase government should be pumping money into this, that or the other.
Yeah.
Gambians obviously think their government has a lot of money.
Yeah.
But thanks for that. We're glad that the strike has ended. And now to our final story of this program, and it's about young entrepreneurs getting a helping hand. Have a look at this clip.
Addressing beneficiaries, the EU ambassador Attila Lajos and the Minister of Trade Lamin Job both expressed optimism that the initiative will help young Gambian entrepreneurs in providing valuable services in the logistics and transport sector to cope with the impact of the crisis.
Moreover, I am very pleased that the support benefits directly young Gambian entrepreneurs. There is one more point about today's handover that I'm really excited about. The equipment also includes e-bikes. While this is still a pilot, this shows again how the European Union is a strong supporter of climate action.
Strong supporter of climate action by giving people e-bikes. As you've been to there, we saw young entrepreneurs who already have a business actually being given really good helping hand. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's a good initiative, because it will help youth, especially it will also reduce the unemployment rate. A little bit, at least they can, with these bicycles, they will find themselves jobs, by delivering parcel or others. Because just this week I was going on a report, on a coverage, so I saw someone, riding these bicycles.
Right.
I was like, wow, this is really good, and I think it looks durable.
But I think you're right there, because a lot of these people, what we saw there in that clip, and what if we'd shown more, what people would have seen is that these are young people who had already started businesses, but because of COVID-19, the impact of COVID-19, their businesses were likely to suffer had they not been given this boost. But it also touches on something you mentioned earlier. We have a huge youth population, and youth employment and youth unemployment are both, major concerns. Would you like to see more people going into this and actually, again, helping young people as we've seen being helped here?
Yes, I would like to see more of these initiatives, and even better initiatives like than this to help youth, because like the unemployment rate is very disheartening here. So this kind of initiative will be welcomed, and it will really help the Gambia, because like a lot of youth will not be idled, or they won't have the opportunity to venture into, some unscrupulous things.
Or even going out the so-called back way.
Yeah,
which
so-called, to the Mediterranean Sea.
Seem to be going to. I mean, I asked you in another context, and this is, we're getting towards the end of the program here now, about youth employment, and this is, I'm putting you on the spot just for once in this. If you were a sort of minister for youth and you saw something like this, what other initiatives do you think there should be to actually create jobs for youth? Because people say, create jobs for the youth, but what sort of things and what sort of sectors do you see as opportunities, where opportunities could exist for youth?
Yeah, for if I were to be the minister,
which I'm making you for the next minute or so. Yeah.
Yes. I will create a lot of trade industry, or lot of trade opportunities, because nowadays youth are venturing into more of trade. Because you will see young women venturing into business, poultry. Or lotion sort of. So you have to know where the interest of the youth lies in order to create those industry and help them, because nowadays a lot of people don't like to do this white collar job. You know, everybody wants to be self-employed.
They want to be entrepreneurs.
Yeah, they want to be entrepreneurs. So, yeah, you have to create a good trade industry.
Sure.
You know, for these youth.
Thank you for that. There you have it. As Ajibintu says there, you have to create good trades and so on for the youth. And hopefully people will see that actually there are many, many opportunities and many chances to earn a living and actually start your own business. So we've come to the end of the program. And I have to say a very big thank you to my colleague, Ajibintu Drame. Thank you for your insight today. Thank you for coming along.
Thank you very much for having me.
And as I said, we're on here on QTV every week. The show is called The Week in Review, and it's exactly that. And we've come to the end of this program, but join us again next week. But for this time, thanks for watching. Goodbye.